Hey, creative cousins. Welcome back to my channel. I'm Renita, aka Lene with Lene Creations, and you're probably here because of my new pattern, the Inception bag. So, this is a shoulder bag, and I'm going to walk through all the specs, and then we're also going to go through a whole tutorial on how to make the bag. So, the bag is a pretty big bag and you can use pretty much any materials. I suggest always using vinyl or like a heavy material with most of my bags, but it is a shoulder bag and it's pretty big. So it's about 12 inches high, 10 inches across, and about 5 inches this way. So it has this open pocket here. Then we have another zipper pocket in the back. And then in the inside, we have two slip pockets. You probably can't see two slip pockets and another zipper pocket, and it closes with a magnetic snap. Um, like I said, it's pretty big. It holds a lot of stuff. So I have some wet ones because of the kids. A makeup bag, some lotion, my wallet. You could actually use a way bigger wallet than this, but that's my wallet. uh, and I have some makeup down here at the bottom. But yeah, that's not even everything it can hold. That's just a little bit of it. Here's another version of it that I did with denim, and the camouflage is waterproof canvas. So I distressed all of the denim, but I interfaced it the same way as I did with the vinyl here, and same results. So as long as you have the same interfacing and all that stuff, you're good to go. So let's jump right into the tutorial on how to make the bag. Okay, so let's talk about our pattern pieces and what we have to cut. So for pattern piece A, we have two of our exterior pieces, and then we're going to have two of our lining pieces. So that's pattern piece A. And then for pattern piece B is going to be two stabilizers. That's going to be Decoville Light. That's going to be for pattern piece B. Then for pattern piece C, we have our side panels. I'm going to use canvas, waterproof canvas for both my lining and my exterior. So I cut four of these, that you're going to need two of your exterior and two of your lining. And then as far as your stabilizer pieces for your side panels, you're going to need to cut two of the Decoville Light. Then for our base, which is pattern piece E, we're going to cut one of our exterior and one of our lining. And then for pattern piece F, which is our stabilizer for the base, we're going to cut one Decoville heavy. Okay, next up for our front pocket, we're going to have our front pocket flap. You're going to cut one exterior and one lining piece. And this is pattern piece G. And then for the actual pocket, which is pattern piece H, you're going to cut one of your exterior and one of your lining. Then we're going to have our zipper pocket overlay for our exterior pocket. This is pattern piece I. And then we're going to have pattern piece J, which is our interior slip pocket. Then for pattern piece K, we're going to actually cut two of our lining pieces for our zipper pocket for the interior. And then for pattern piece L, we're going to have our exterior zipper pocket, one of your lining pieces. And then lastly, we're going to cut our handle. Now, I'm going to do the shoulder bag. There is an option to do like a crossbody strap, a longer strap if you want to, but this is the piece for our handle. Now, onto our hardware, you're going to need two 9-inch zippers along with your zipper pulls. So two zipper pulls for those. You're going to need two gate rings. I recommend that you do 2 inches or above. You can do it that way. If you go a little smaller, that you might run into a problem with your bag opening. So I recommend 2 inches or higher. You're going to need 2 magnetic snaps. Optional is a bag tag. You're going to need 5 purse feet. Again, that's going to be optional if you want to put those on there. And then you're going to need 2 swivel clasps. These are 1.5 inches. If you are doing the longer strap, you will also need a slider for your strap. So that would go along with these in your longer strap. All right, let's get started. And then next, you are going to fuse your 2 Decoville light pieces to 2 of your side panel pieces. Then for your base, you're going to fuse your Decoville heavy to the bottom of your exterior base piece. Next part of our prep, after we fuse all of these, my suggestion would be to mark all of your centers on all of your pieces, except for the zipper overlay, because that one will show. So you want to mark your centers on all of your pattern pieces, including your lining pieces. Okay, my next step would be to mark all of your landmark pieces. Some of your pattern pieces have landmarks or where you should put certain things. So for example, on your pattern piece A on your front main panel, you're going to draw this box from your pattern piece. This is where we're going to place our pocket. Then like another example would be on your flap lining piece, you're going to mark where your magnetic snap goes. So make sure you put all of your landmarks. Now, the only thing is for your zipper overlay, you are going to cut this box out. Now, for the lining piece of your main fabric, you're going to draw that box, but you're not going to cut that box out. You just want to draw it on the back of your lining piece. So make sure you mark all of your landmarks, and then be sure to cut this middle part out in your zipper overlay. And then on the lining piece of your main panel, do not cut that box out. Just draw the box on there. All right, so now we're going to get into actually sewing up our bag. So I have my exterior 3D pocket piece, and then my lining piece for that pocket, and then also the female portion of our magnetic snap. Our first step is you're going to install the female piece of the magnetic snap on the exterior piece of your pocket. So once we do that, then we're going to box our corners down here at the bottom on both the exterior piece and the lining piece. And to do that, we're just going to bring these 2 corners together like this, right sides together, and then sew here. Same thing on this side. We're going to bring these together like this and sew. So again, do that for both the exterior piece and also your lining piece. Okay, now that we've sewn our lining down at the bottom and boxed our corners, and also our exterior piece boxed at the corners, we're going to flip this out so that we can put these right sides together with the lining. And you're just going to make sure all of your edges match and all of your box corners match. And we're just going to sew. We're going to start here and go across, down at the bottom, and up again, leaving that part open so we can turn it right side out. Okay, now that we have our pocket done, we've sewn our exterior to our lining. Now we're just going to make sure that this top part is folded in. So you just kind of want to play with it a little bit and fold it in. And now we're just going to top stitch across just the top, not the whole thing, just at the top. Okay, now we're going to work with our exterior front piece, and we're going to put double-sided tape on the inside of this box, on the sides, and also down at the bottom. We're going to leave that top one open, so just on the sides and the bottom. Okay, go ahead and remove the double-sided tape from the sides and the bottom of our piece here. And we're now just going to play around with the pocket to make sure it fits. So take your pocket, make sure that you line up your corners here at the top of the pocket. And yeah, you're going to have to play with it just to make sure that it fits and that it's inside of the box. But I promise you the box is going to help you do that. So my suggestion would be to do one side at a time. So here, I'm just making sure that the right side fits. I'm going to tuck in the lining just a little bit to make sure that my corners are matching here, and sew down this side. Same thing with the bottom. I'm going to make sure that my lining is tucked in the inside, making sure the corners match, and here at the top again. So we're just going to do that, and that creates our pocket. Okay, now we have our pocket done, the bottom of our pocket with our lining, and now we're going to work on the flat piece. Now we're going to work on our flat pieces. We have our exterior and our lining piece. We're going to install the male portion of the magnetic strap on the lining piece and not our exterior piece. Okay, once we have that installed, we're going to take our exterior piece and our lining piece, and we're going to put those right sides together, and then pin or clip, and then you're just going to sew around, leaving an opening up here at the top so we can turn it right side out. Once we've sewn our flap together, we are now going to top stitch. Now we're going to leave this top open and just top stitch around the bottom part of our flap and leaving this part still unstitched. Now we're going to take our exterior piece where our pocket is there, and see the line that we drew earlier up at the top. We're going to put double-sided tape right above that line that we drew. Then we're going to take our flap and make sure that this is our folded edges in, and then we're going to put it right sides together on that line where the tape is, and it's going to have a little bit of overhang on each side. Then you want to just make sure that the magnetic snaps are aligned and that the flap is facing right side with the main panel piece. And then we're going to sew across at a 1/8 seam allowance. Okay, now our main panel, our front main panel is complete with our 3D pocket. Here is optional. If you want to add a back tag, I would suggest going down 4.5 inches from the top and centered. But if you don't want to add a back tag, that's fine. Your front panel is complete. You just set it aside for later assembly. Now we are going to work on our exterior zipper panel. So what you'll need is your zipper, of course, with your zipper pull. And then you're going to need your zipper overlay. You're going to need your lining piece, your zipper lining piece, and then you're going to need your exterior back piece. Okay, first step in our zipper pocket, we're going to take our zipper overlay and we're going to turn it over to the wrong side. And then we are going to add double-sided tape on each of these long ends. Once we do that, we're then going to take our main panel, the back side of our main panel, and then we're going to line it up, make sure that it's centered. I give the measurement in the pattern, but you're going to lay it right there on that line that we drew. Once we have that, then we're going to sew around the outside perimeter of the box, not the interior, but the outside perimeter of the box at a 1/8 seam allowance. Okay, now that we've sewn our perimeter, we're going to cut a line through the middle of this box. That way it's going to make it a little easier for us to cut away the excess of our zipper box. Okay, so I've cut a line down the middle, so it makes it a little bit easier for us to cut away this excess fabric here. So what you want to do is just start cutting away. You just want to make sure that your window is clean. Now, you also want to make sure that you are not cutting your zipper overlay and also your external piece. Okay, so we're just going to cut away this excess. It doesn't have to be perfect. You just want to make sure that you don't see your fabric from the front side. Okay, so I'm just going to snip away here and just making sure that my window is clear. Okay, so here we are. We've cut away most of our fabric. So when we turn this over to the front side, you don't see any fabric here. So that's what we want. We want a clean window here. Same for in the back. Like I said, it doesn't have to be neat. You just don't want to see it. Okay, next we're going to grab our zipper. If you're using zipper tape, make sure you put your zipper pull on. You don't want to forget that. Then you're going to put double-sided tape on the long ends of your zipper. Then we're going to take our panel piece, our main panel piece, and then we're going to lay that on top of our zipper, making sure that our zipper is centered. Okay, now that we have our zipper in place and it's even and we can see it and it's neat, you're going to turn it over to the wrong side and we're going to add another layer of double-sided tape down at the bottom of our zipper tape. Okay, now we're going to take our double-sided tape and take the backing off here. Then we're also going to grab our lining piece, the zipper lining pocket piece, and we're going to lay that face down. Okay, so make sure that it's face down, and we're going to line one of those short edges up with the bottom of our zipper. I know it looks funny, but trust me, it's going to work out. So we're going to line that up with the double-sided tape, and we're going to make sure the pocket is up and not down. Okay, so you want to make sure that it's up. Then once we have that, we're going to flip it over to the right side. Again, making sure that the pocket is faced up or pulled up instead of down. And then we're just going to sew down one edge, this long edge down at the bottom. Okay, now that we've sewn just this bottom edge of our zipper pocket, now we're going to flip it over to the wrong side and we're going to add another layer of double-sided tape down here at the bottom of where we just stitched. Once we do that, then we're going to bring our lining down and that's going to hold our lining down in place. Okay, now that we've added some double-sided tape here to hold our lining in place, now we're going to add another piece of double-sided tape here. Bring the bottom of this and bring it to the top where we just added that double-sided tape. We're going to turn this over to the right side and we're going to continue stitching around our box here. Okay, now that we've sewn our overlay onto our zipper, and we're going to finish up our pocket. Okay, so to do that, we're going to sew both of these long edges here. I think the easiest way to do that is to flip it over to the right side and then fold your fabric out of the way so that you don't sew your main piece to your pocket. Okay, so fold it over to the right side and then just sew down each side so that we can finish our pocket. Okay, now that we've sewn both edges of our zipper pocket, the last thing to do is trim our zipper to be even here. And then if we flip this over, our zipper pocket is done. So external piece is done. Okay, now that we have all of our external pieces, we're going to put these all together. So first we have our main front panel, and then we have our back main panel, and then we have both of our side pieces, and then we just want to make sure that we fused our Decoville light to both of those, and then also our base piece. And if you are using purse feet, you just want to add those now. Okay, first we're going to start off with one of our side pieces, and make sure that your wider part is up at the top and the narrow part is down at the bottom. Then you're going to make two measurements. So we're going to mark 3/8 of an inch on each side of all of our pieces. So that's your two sides, your main panel, and also your base. We're going to mark 3/8 of an inch from each one. Then we're going to put these right sides together. And what we're going to do is sew down just our regular 3/8 inch seam allowance, but we're going to stop at that mark that we made on all of our pieces. Okay, so make sure that we're stopping right here at this mark because that's going to help us put it together. Now that we've sewn one of our side panels and our main panels together, we're going to open up our seams here. And of course, if you're working with vinyl, you just kind of have to finger press it open. But we're going to flip this over once we have those open, and we're going to top stitch on our main panel. Okay, so once you do that, make sure that you stop at that 3/8 mark because you don't want to go all the way down. You want to stop at that 3/8 mark and leave that open. Now that we've top stitched our main panel here, we're going to take another external piece. So it could be a side panel or the other main panel. It doesn't matter which one you work in, but we're going to do the same thing. We're going to sew down and stop at the 3/8 mark that we made. And then we're again open it up and top stitch. Okay, lastly but certainly not least, now that we've sewn both of these side panels, we're going to take the other main panel, the back with the zipper pocket, turn that right side together, and it doesn't matter if you do the right side or the left side, we're going to sew these up the same. So here I'm going to line it up and make sure I stop at that 3/8 mark. Okay, now that we have all four of our sides sewn together, I just wanted to pause here and say top stitching this last seam is going to be a little bit difficult. You just kind of want to take your time and make sure you have an even top stitch here. Okay, now that we have all four external pieces sewn together and top stitch, now it's time for us to put our base down at the bottom. Okay, so we're going to grab our base piece and make sure that it is like right sides together with your bag and not turned the other way. But we're just going to line this up. So I had you keep the 3/8 inch open down here at the bottom, And that's because it should just line up. We don't have to cut or clip into our corners. We can just sew around the bag at the normal 3/8 inch seam allowance. Okay, now that we've sewn on our base, we've checked to make sure that we caught all of our corners, and then we're just going to set this aside because now our external part of our bag is complete. Now we're going to work on our interior slip pocket. So you'll need your slip pocket piece and also your main lining piece, the one that does not have the box on there. And we're going to set this aside for just a second. For your slip pocket piece, making sure that the longest end is vertical, and we're going to fold this right sides together, and then we're going to sew here and down, and then here and down, leaving an opening so we can turn it right side out. Okay, we've turned our slip pocket right side out and we've pressed. Now we're going to top stitch here at the top. So make sure that it's not the bottom where this part is still open, but up at the top we're going to top stitch. Okay, after we've top stitched, we're going to turn it to the back and add double-sided tape on these 3 edges here. Then we're going to take our lining piece, the main lining piece, and the measurements here are in the pattern, but we're going to go down and make sure that it's centered. Then we're going to remove the double-sided tape and place our pocket piece right on that line, making sure that our bottom is folded in. Then once we do that, we're going to sew down all 3 of these sides, and then that'll leave our pocket open. Okay, now that our slip pocket is done, you do have the option to sew down the middle here to make 2 separate slip pockets if you want. I'm just going to leave mine as one big slip pocket, but again, you can just sew down the middle here to make 2 slip pockets. Last thing we need to do is add our magnetic snap and then set this piece aside for later assembly. Okay, now we're going to work on our interior zipper pocket. So you'll need your zipper along with your zipper pull for that zipper, and then you'll need your other piece of your magnetic snap. You'll need your 2 zipper pocket lining pieces, and then also your main panel lining piece. First, we're going to work with our main lining piece. Make sure that it's the one where we have the box that we drew. Then we're going to take one of our zipper lining pieces right side down, and again, I give the measurement in the pattern here, but we're going to lay this piece exactly on that line that we drew based on the measurements, and you can pin or clip here. Then once we do that, we're going to turn it over to the wrong side, and then we're going to sew around this box. Now, to avoid puckering, I would do just the long ends and leave the side ends open. I've already started here, but you're going to cut a line down the middle of this box, and then you're going to cut all the way up and probably about a ½ inch or so from the edge of that box, and then clip right into those corners and make a Y, making sure that you're not clipping into your stitches. If you did sew the whole box, just make a Y there, and then we're going to do that on the other end as well. Okay, once we've cut into our pocket here, we're going to push this lining piece through that line that we just made. And you're going to do that for both the top and the bottom. and then you're gonna press this. Now I'm working with waterproof canvas, so it's a little hard for me to press it. I'm gonna finger press that as flat as I can. Now we're going to take our zipper and add double-sided tape to both long edges of our zipper, the top and bottom. Also, make sure you put your zipper pull on. And then we're going to take our piece that we were just working with, our lining piece, and lay that right side up on top of our zipper, making sure that it's centered. And then we're going to sew around this box. Okay, now that we've sewn around our zipper pocket here, we're going to turn our panel right side down and then take our other lining piece and lay that right side down facing the other lining pocket piece, making sure that it's lined up with the top of our other lining piece. You can also add a piece of double-sided tape here at the top, but we're going to sew around this entire box. Okay, now that we've sewn around our zipper pocket piece, you can trim your zippers to be even with your pocket pieces. And then for some reason mine's a little funky here, but you can just trim that to make it even. Last thing we need to do on this piece is add our magnetic snap here. Okay, now we're going to work on putting all of our lining pieces together. And we're going to put this together the same way we did our external piece, except for there's a couple different things that we have to do to kind of grade our seam allowance to make it fit in our bag. Now I want to pause here and explain our measurements on our pieces. So for all of our pieces, you're going to have your 3 lines here. And what that means is when you're sewing, you're going to start here at the top of your regular seam allowance. And then we're going to, once we get to that point, we're going to grade out to a 1/2 inch seam allowance and sew that all the way down till we get to our 3rd measurement, and then back to our 3/8 seam allowance and stop at our 3/8 point. I just wanted to pause here and say that it doesn't matter which order that you sew your main panel together, just as long as you're doing your panels and your side pieces and then your base piece. Okay, now that we've sewn all 4 of our pieces, we're going to add our base piece on, and we're going to do the same thing. We're going to line these up, and then we're going to sew all the way around, except for we're going to just leave an opening so that we can turn it right side out. Now, before moving on to our next step, we just want to make sure that that 1/2 mark that we made up at the top of our lining, we're just going to clip those and making sure that we don't clip into our stitches. Then we're going to make sure that we kind of trim down our seam allowance, but making sure that we don't go past that 1/2 mark that we made up at the top. Okay, once we have both of our pieces sewn up, you're going to make sure that your exterior piece is right side out and that your lining piece is wrong side out. Then you're going to take your exterior piece and tuck it inside of your lining. And it doesn't matter if you want your zipper pocket facing the back or the front. It's up to you how you want to, make your bag up. Here I am putting the zipper pocket towards the front because there's a zipper pocket in the bag. Okay, you kind of have to like push your bag all the way in there so that your top raw edges line up as well. So once you get that all the way in there, pushed down, and your raw edges at the top match, you're going to make sure that the center markings that we made earlier and while we were prepping the bag, making sure those match. And then also all of your side seams should match as well. Okay, once you get those matched up, I would say clip that around and then sew all the way around your bag. Okay, now that we've sewn around our bag, bringing our lining and our main panel together, I went ahead and took some pinking shears and cut down my seam allowance here. If you don't have pinking shears, that's fine. You can just cut down your seam allowance all the way around. Then once we have that hole that we left in our lining, we're going to pull our bag through here, basically birthing our bag through that hole. Then we're going to push our lining inside of our bag. Then we're going to push down the lining so that it kind of is not visible on the outside of the bag. And then we're going to top stitch our bag. Okay, we have our bag turned right side out. I just wanted to pause here and kind of mention we kind of want to roll our seam allowance down into the bag, and then you can kind of take some clips so that it stays in place, and then we will top stitch all around our bag. Okay, once we finish top stitching our bag, we can close up our bottom here, and you'll just kind of fold in your seam, and you can just sew along here. Okay, now that we've completed that part of our bag, we're going to install our grommets. So you'll need your 8 grommets, and then in the pattern I give the measurements of how to measure on your front and your back panels. Those are the same measurements, so you'll mark one on this seam, one on this seam. It's kind of hard to see there, on the front panel here, and also here. Then on your side panels, you have two different measurements, but they'll be the same on each side. So you have one here, one there. I know it's kind of hard to see, one there, and then also here and here. Okay, so you'll once you measure those and mark where you're going to put your grommets, you'll just install your grommets like your manufacturer says to install your grommets. Okay, now that we have all of our grommets installed, we're going to take our bag and kind of push the middle side seams in together where these two meet, and then your front grommet will meet there and your back grommet will meet there, so that it kind of has this fold here that kind of looks like a lunch bag, like a brown paper bag. So once you do that, you kind of pinch these sides in, and you will feed your gate rings through here. Okay, so here's our gate ring, and then we'll just feed it in through here. That's the front of our bag. You can do it from the back, it doesn't matter. Then feed it through there, feed it through the second middle part, and then through the back. Okay, so there's the first gate ring. Same thing with this one. Feed it through, feed it through there, there, and there. Okay, so that part of our bag is complete. This is what our gate rings will look like. And now it's time to work on our strap. Hey, here we are in our last stretch. We're going to work on our handle. So you're going to need both of your swivel clasps and then your handle piece. If you are making the longer strap, then I suggest you also use a slider. And I do have another video on how to create the longer strap. But for this one, we're just going to work on the handle. Okay, first step we're going to do is we're going to draw a line down the middle, all the way down the middle of our strap. So from one end all the way down to the other. Once you have your midway point marked, you're also going to mark halfway in between those. So make another mark, probably about a 1/4 inch here. It doesn't have to be super long. We just want to make sure we kind of note where our measurements are. So halfway down, and then halfway between that mark and the edge, we're going to make another mark. So in this case, here's our halfway, and this is 1.5 and 1.5. Once you have those marked, then we're going to make a snip at those marks. So like I said, you don't have to be super long about it, probably about a 1/4 inch there. Once you do that, then we're going to cut at a diagonal. So cut that much off, and then again on this side, about a 45-degree angle. So your bottom of your strap should look like this. Then you're going to take some double-sided tape here and fold this over. Once we have that folded over, then we can now take these and fold them over to the middle. Same thing for this side, fold it over to the middle, and then once more. So that's going to encase our raw edges there. Okay, so to do that, you're going to need some double-sided tape. I promise you that'll help you. So put double-sided tape here, fold in this edge, double-sided tape all the way down here, fold this side, and then it may help again to put double-sided tape on either one of these so that it holds, or you can clip, it doesn't matter. And then here. Once we have that all folded in, then we're going to sew down each long end of our strap. Okay, now that we have sewn down our strap, our next step is we're going to measure 1 inch from each end of our handle here. So 1 inch there, and do the same thing on this side. Then we're going to take one of our swivel clasps and we're going to feed it on right to that inch that we made. And then right at that mark that we made, we're just going to fold it over. Once you fold it over, then you can just sew this down, or if you want to, you can add 2 rivets here to hold that in place. And we're going to do the same thing on the other end. So again, feed your swivel clasp on, and right at that inch mark that we made, we're going to fold our strap over and either sew or add rivets here. Okay, we've sewn up our handle. The last thing we need to do is just add our handle to our bag. Okay, and we are all done. Okay, so here is our finished product of the bag we just made. And I hope that the tutorial was super helpful for you. I know people prefer the video versions over the written instructions along with the pictures and the photos. But I hope this was helpful for you. I hope this was not too complicated for you. And I just want to thank you for, number 1, buying the pattern, number 2, watching my videos, and coming to hang out with me to sew up this bag. So until next time, happy sewing.